Hi, I'm Ian Mean. I'm Content Director of Local World Newspapers, and I'm introducing this evening Simon Collins. Simon is Chairman of the KPMG Group, one of the Big Four. The debate tonight is actually being sponsored by the Bristol Post. Simon, you're seen as something of an inspirational leader in accountancy terms in the Big Four. How have you achieved this, do you think? Because you were actually voted as chairman by your peers, weren't you?
Yes, we had a pretty full-blooded election, so it's a real democracy. 600 partners chose who they wanted to lead the firm for the next 5 years.
So why do you think you won that?
I think you'd have to ask the 600 truthfully, but the sort of messages I think were important to the partners were about a clear sense of purpose and direction about where the business goes, where it fits in society, and a very big theme for me was how we put trust and respect back into business and the accountancy profession at KPMG.
And how do we? Because, I mean, I'm not bracketing you in the same way as bankers, but a lot of mistrust in the financial area, isn't there?
I think there's a huge amount of mistrust. I think broken is the only way to put it between business generally and society, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. We've got, in almost every industry, there's examples of behaviours that you can't hold up and say that's what good business is. So whether it's pharmaceuticals and bribery, whether it's horse meat, whether it's libel mis-selling, whether it's tax, every industry has got something that damages trust. So I think we've got a long, slow journey to claw that back through good behaviour and actually just concentrating on doing the right thing.
But how can you hope to do that? Because you've got loads and loads of partners, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. I don't think that, in a sense, is the difficult bit. I mean, certainly for us as a firm, we have integrity and responsibility really close to our hearts, and frankly, the partnership model is really good. I don't think I've got a single partner who doesn't care passionately about leaving the business in better shape than they find it, and so doing the right thing, I think, comes naturally.
Yeah, I mean, the right thing. So what's the right thing for a member of the Big Four like KPMG?
The right thing is to advise clients responsibly, to behave with integrity, to be a true commercial animal. We're not I make no apology for profit being a big part of what we try and achieve. To be sustainable in business, you have to make profit, you have to be successful. But to be sustainable and to pass on a better business, you also have to have at least a benign footprint with society. Better still, if business can actually contribute to society and leave good behind.
Is it ethical to advise people to dodge tax, you think?
No. If you ask the question like that, no. Is it ethical to take advantage of legislation that specifically encourages companies to locate in the UK and to take advantage of tax breaks? Yes. So I think where we get into trouble in part of that trust equation is when there's a lack of clarity about what we're talking about. Genuinely egregious bad behaviour in tax planning is immoral, just outright wrong, and we condemn it. The big accounting firms, the accounting profession will have nothing to do with that. Utilising tax breaks that are specifically put in place by government to compete internationally, to encourage investment and people to come here and do business is a really good thing to do for society at large, and we get mixed up about it.
But when we see companies going before select parliamentary committees, as we have done, and being frankly terribly embarrassed, I'm not saying that you are involved with any of those people, but it's not good, is it, when the public sees that?
No, it's really bad for trust, but I think what we've got to look at is several things. You've got to look at whether companies have been lawful, and then whether politicians and society like the outcome of them being lawful. So if you look at some of the big companies in the news for paying low headline rates of corporation tax, that looks on the face of it something that doesn't work for society. But they've got there without a breach of law at all. And in fact, in many cases, they've got there specifically taking advantage of things successive governments have intended them to do. If government and society doesn't like the result of that, which is that company X only pays 5p in the pound corporation tax. For me and for the profession, I think that's a problem for legislators and not a problem to parcel out to tax advisors.
No. Now, the day after the election, the budget rather, not the elections actually, we're talking. I mean, if you were in number 11, what do you do in terms of your first budget if it was yesterday? Have you got some thoughts on that?
I think that I wake up many days grateful I'm not in number 11 or politics generally. And I think one of the big problems waking up in number 11 any time now or recently has been not a great deal of money or flexibility to do things. It seems to me what the Chancellor was looking to do was to encourage growth in the economy, to make the cake bigger, and actually to get Britain exporting again, manufacturing again, and to the extent that the limited money available was directed in those directions, actually I think it was a pretty decent budget for business.
What about the grey vote? I mean, lots there, wasn't there? The lots to encourage people, retired people, to vote for the coalition in a year's time.
I don't know about voting. I think there was a lot there for savers, and there probably is. I think you're right. There's probably a correlation between savers and the grey pound and so on.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot there to actually encourage saving and actually investment indirectly as well. And I think again, that goes around in a virtuous circle for me with encouraging investment in industry and growth and manufacturing and so on. So I don't know, I'm sure that you'd have to ask the Chancellor what his political ambitions were around those things, but from an economics point of view I think they made perfect sense.
So what are you advising some of your clients from today on about how they see the next couple of years? Because we're going into election in a year's time. You will have a view about that.
Well, it's not so much a political thought. What we've got 24 offices up and down the country. We look after companies from really relatively small companies right through to the multinationals. What we are seeing is a definite uptick in sentiment, definite more positive feel from our clients up and down the country. Manufacturing, export, everyone's feeling that little bit brighter. The growth figures support that, job creation supports that. So I think for the first time in quite a few years, we've got what I would describe as a benign backcloth for businesses to plan. Now we've also got some uncertainties. We've still got very topical things around the Ukraine and political uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty if you like. Scottish independence is worrying people. It's not so much that business should have or does have an outright view of right or wrong. It's simply uncertainty. So we've got, now we're in March, we've got Ukraine to be resolved, we've got September Scottish referendum, we've got a general election next May. Business doesn't like uncertainty. On the other hand, it's learned to cope with it. And I think overall, watch for uncertainty, but invest into that benign background.
Personal question, what's your view on the Scottish referendum issue?
I don't have, from a personal point of view...
would it affect KPMG if Scotland were to go it alone?
I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would affect us. We've got clients north and south of the border who trade, employ, deal with north and south of the border respectively. So it would affect us as it would affect any other business who's got nationwide contacts. My own view is, personally, I'm a unionist around it. I'd be very sad to see the people of Scotland vote for independence, but we're a democracy and we will respect their vote.
Now, also talking politically, you paint quite a rosy picture for your clients and your customers under the coalition. What if Labour were to get in?
Well, I think we're seeing business become quite vocal about not so much whether it's Conservative, Labour, Liberal, but actually the types of policies. And one of the things that is worrying business is what I think of as a demonisation of business. So whether it's the coalition government encouraging bashing on tax multinationals, whether it's Labour having a go at energy and price controls, those are things that worry business. And I think responsible business is thinking, okay, politicians have got a view, we've got to get our house in order. But actually an era of real state intervention and a climate of uncertainty in business planning is going to disrupt.
Is this government a supporter of business, do you think?
I think this government's been a big supporter of business in many ways. I think if you look at UKTI, UK Trade and Investment, you look at the way the government's tried to energise the ambassador network. I know from personal experience...
Because you went to China, didn't you?
Been to India, we've supported trade missions to China with the Prime Minister and with the Mayor and with the Chancellor. I think they've been very energetic about supporting exports. I think they, like all politicians, can sometimes smell votes in an anti-big business agenda, so I don't think they're perfect, but I think there's a genuine will to encourage manufacturing, and particularly to encourage export. So I find the government very responsive around help for British business.
In terms of business issues, how do you see energy as a big issue?
It's huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge.
Of course, down here, as you know, is with Somerset and EDF, it's a very major situation.
I think it's a very major situation locally. It's a very major situation nationally, and it affects different businesses in different ways, but most are dependent in some way on certainty of supply, of cost, and of environmental considerations. I mean, businesses, despite the way they're sometimes portrayed, care about their footprint in every sense. So people do worry about the environment. They worry about cost. Energy is a big raw material for many, many British businesses. So, of course, they're worried, and they'd like to see more certainty of supply and of cost.
Simon, we've got some great companies in this area, Bristol, the southwest, people like customers of yours, I gather, Augusta Westland, people like Renishaw. They seem to be doing well. Is it a real genuine doing well, do you think?
I think it is. I think there's a little bit of caution, because after 7 or 8 years of being bashed, companies have caution. But the southwest is home to a lot of high-tech manufacturing, export-led companies, and they're feeling that uptick in sentiment too. They're working hard to innovate, working hard to be competitive globally and to export, and we're seeing them do well and be that little bit more confident.
Can I ask you about communities and support of communities? Because I think the Big Four is seen as slightly distant. What is your view about supporting communities in which you derive business?
We're really passionate about supporting communities. I mean, I hope we're not seen in any sense as distant. We feel very passionate about being involved. So examples, we are desperately keen to try to make our people in our organisation look like society. Yeah. So we're in the war for talent. We're trying to improve access to the profession. We're trying to work with local communities, particularly in deprived boroughs in major cities, work with city academies, work with local schools, and try to involve people. Now, that gives us a source of good talent that we wouldn't otherwise get. One of the most important things we've found is that for the people in our business, they really love the idea that they can put something back into the community by mentoring, by reading skills, by those types of things as well.
And what about young people? We've got a huge problem, haven't we, with the number of unemployed young people. In your company, do you have a lot of trainees, interns, apprentices? Are you active in that area?
We're very active, and increasingly so. So at the moment, the majority of new entrants into our professional career paths are still graduates, but we've had a school leaver program running for about 4 years. We've now had about 450 people through that. We've launched 2 different waves of apprentice programs, one specifically targeting kids who frankly wouldn't get a chance in any conventional sense, so we're specifically targeting those. We've got a fabulous success rate with those. About 60% are staying with us after the 1 year program. We're launching apprenticeships up and down the country, and we expect that to be a greater proportionate part of where we access talent.
Good. And your views on women and diversity, I noticed that you actually got a partner. I quite like the title, sort of a people person. And I know you've talked here about the importance of, I was looking at The Guardian a while back, the importance of women in the business. Could you sort of expand on that a bit?
Well, I think I'd start with the importance of people in the business. I want our business to feel different in 2 ways. I want, first of all, our business to look and feel like society. And at the moment, we look a whole lot more white, middle-aged and middle class than society does and than our clients do. So that's a direction of travel, is we have to look more like society. The second piece is I want people who come to work to bring their whole self to work. So I don't want anybody walking through our door thinking I've got to leave my home personality or problem or image behind me and adopt a work persona. So as far as I'm concerned, we want people who are black, white, male, female, straight, gay, everything, able-bodied, disabled, and we want them to be open about and proud of who and what they are. And it's a big journey.
How do you do that? I mean, that sounds a real great idea, which everyone would support, but how do you actually police it? How do you make it work?
Well, first of all, I mean, we sponsored some research recently that was pretty humbling for me, because we got King's College London to go out and ask a group of CEOs how you actually make this happen. And the humbling thing was that what they pointed to was the fact that a lot of CEOs have what I call clean hearts but dirty hands, because they say highfalutin stuff like I just did, but actually they don't drive the change through the organisations, and that's affected me quite deeply. The research we sponsored was directly personally humbling around that. So in the aftermath of that, we've moved to be very specific about improving the gender diversity of our new partner candidates this year, and we're going to announce them shortly, but they're going to be dramatically different. Right. Entirely on talent, entirely on merit, but dramatically different than they have before. And we're going to have a series of targets that come from that we're going to drive down through the business. We've also just taken on a really inspirational guy, Stephen Frost, who was the Diversity and Inclusion Director for the London Olympics, and really inspirational guy who I hope is going to help keep us on the path, because you're right, there's a gap between a good intention and actually making sure that we drive it through.
And what about you? So you've got a 5-year plan, I guess, in your head. You're an accountant plans. What's the 5-year plan?
The 5-year plan, if you start at what I think of as sort of 70,000 feet, the 5-year plan is to leave behind a better business after my period of leadership than I inherited. And I think all leaders should have that in mind. I want to leave the business prouder, financially stronger, and with a better footprint in the community, is what you referred to earlier, than I found it.